but the point is that it's everyone.
Honestly, I definitely have to agree to that. I really don't think it goes down to kind of the individual. I think this is more working on how these teams are playing. And I definitely feel a map fight is quite possible. I mean, University of Tennessee,
Yeah.
they did not look ready to lose that map, and I don't think they look ready to lose Dorado, especially with the double shield. We saw it similarly work out before, but I think they're going to have an easier time on here.
I agree. I think that with the things that we've seen University of Tennessee wanting to run, I think that Dorado is still a strong place for them to set up the tent, say we are here to stay in this series. We set up our campsite. We're here for the rest of the evening, and we'll just have to see if it works out. This double shield composition is a strong comp to run to full hold this first point. See if they can actually do it.
No, I can agree to that. But look, the dive, it goes in and it's doing its job, making so much space. St. John's have set themselves up, especially Rich, just to be looking for this damage as that payload moves closer to Tennessee. They have to identify, do they want to rotate or do they want to keep fighting it? It seems that they want to keep fighting it as they take out If You Stay. The monkey, I mean, not really able to help out the rest of the team as Rich, they've lost their DPS. That Ana is split off from the line of sight. Luckily, though, the res comes in, so you have that secure ability a little longer. But how do you let yourself die to the melee after coming back alive? I just feel that's how the cinematic went.
Yeah, that's a little unfortunate for St. John's, investing actually quite a bit into that fight and not really attaining any meaningful progress. You push the cart to a point where you'd see a rotation from the defense, and finally they will rotate, but they're generating ultimates really quickly.
Honestly, you make a great point when it comes down to just those ultimates. I mean, St. John's coming up onto the Primal Rage, coming up onto the Nano. They're set up for a lot here, and really that's just what they were playing for Tennessee. They do have the window to counterplay, but look at this Nano going in, looking to take out that Ashe, just not going to be able to escape enough that window in a very uncomfortable spot. Dalton wants to disengage, doesn't want to use that Primal Rage just yet. The rest of Tennessee, they're looking to just stay as a group. They don't want to leave themselves at any point. With Rich returning into the fight, Tennessee, you have to take a little bit more angles. You can't let yourselves get stabbed, especially when that payload gets capped.
And that's kind of the weakness of the double shield comp on this first point, is when you're in control of that high ground, the map is your oyster there. But then when you're finally forced into an objective-based fight, especially against the double bubble brawl, you're playing to your weaknesses there. There's not really a lot of counterplay around that. I think that I would have liked to see a rotation come in onto the objective a little bit later from University of Tennessee, but the fact remains that, again, they were able to generate some meaningful ultimates. That fight will invariably see some of those get use in this next fight.
I definitely agree, especially with If You Stay dying so early. I mean, the Hubs has been one of the most shining players I've seen so far, and I think the Dragons is going to be a big deal. I mean, you already know that they are staying underneath. You finish out the Zarya, so no flux quite possible. I mean, with the res, it does change my statement, but what matters is the fact that you have forced out that res very early, and with the monkey going down this incredibly quick before the primal is used, Rich using that copy, going into the backline, hoping to just kind of finish it off. They have to rely on the Nano Blade, but it works to such beautiful factors. I mean, you manage to find two with it, and you get the third. Though the Bob is able to be a menace in its own right, does seem Tennessee they'll have to come up with a new plan.
And with the lack of a defensive ult to mitigate the damage that Nano Blade is capable of doing, St. John's University actually kind of baited the Flux out of Lucky Dog. Now on the Diva is kind of an answer to Jolt and Joe in the dives, but are you going to be able to dish out the damage to burn through this Primal Rage? Even with a Bongo, you might suffer. Oh, but with an Air Matrix, you couldn't melt him.
You really just have to do it. There is no if. And, well, especially when you lose Slurpee out, now that's one support down. You don't have to damage boost in. Tennessee, they are going to be able to shreds back. They're going to look clean, and this fight has to reset to stop the snowball before it can get too bad. You're looking good, Tennessee.
That was a really close fight for them, though, and ultimately they end up having to spend quite a few resources in the interest of securing themselves here on this high ground. But again, that's part of the strength of this Orisa base composition is that when you do control this high ground, you're looking pretty good. If you stay, don't let them get away with that much poke there. Generating another rapid blade here is going to be pretty dangerous to play into for University of Tennessee. Connection on the objective here from St. John's.
Oh no! The EM was there, but they did not pull it down. It was a little bit too high. Now the nano onto the monkey. Tennessee have been caught with their pants down. They don't have too much to kind of counterplay this, especially when they've lost the majority of their team. 5 still alive, no 4, and the anti lands onto the D.Va. It just seems Tennessee not having too much are going to be crumbling underneath the committed dive and focus fire. Even if that Orisa and D.Va last for a little bit longer, it seems that second point capture is inevitable.
Yeah, and you wanted that second point stretch to last a little bit longer as well for the defense. What part of their win condition was really dragging out resource after resource from St. John's just to let them take that. That's not what's happening here. Instead, St. John's is generating resources while winning fights, while seizing objectives, and that's a dangerous position to be in for University of Tennessee. Coming into this fight with basically just the Bob in the window, while St. John's has another Nanoblade in the works.
I mean, the Nanoblade worked out to varying degrees, but definitely shined, so I have to see what it does here. Going back up, the Immortality basically counters out. Like every Genji in the world feels that pain, but still, it has worked to beautiful degrees, especially with Rich throwing out a second Bob. Pretty sure that overwrites the last Bob, but I mean, the timer is still going to be there. They reset. That was practically a team kill. It is going to be Tennessee walking out on point, trying to stop them on the third Lord. This is going to be a big problem. They really only have the window, and you need to stand still with that ultimate as the Mercy. It's just looking to touch that point. They have to use the Immortality. The anti lands through, and they melt down. Now with the bomb being thrown in, the window being placed, they look to clean out the Mr. Oakland. It is a big pick, but they stopped the res from Noodles before it can kind of trade back in. Now Tennessee, they are being melted down. The res going on to Mr. Oakman. They are being able to come back into this push, and yet Tennessee, they are finding the picks, or at least coming back as a unit to where St. John's, they don't have too much in their back pocket. They just have to commit back into the fight. They have to ignore the mines. They have to use the nano onto that monkey, hoping to kill this Mercy in the air. But look at that, being able to fly for a little bit longer. If you stay, does perish to the mines, and it seems that the stall, it's working. They still want to push in, but honestly, it's not working to Tennessee's, it's not working to St. John's factor anymore until we see the grab used. The blade is built, and they try to style in, but everybody's already dead. You have to kind of walk into them now, looking for that D.Va. With a minute left on the clock, the Wrecking Ball is the last person
spinning to winning.
And, well, you're not really spinning to winning anymore. You're speeding. Oh, never mind. There's no joke with that. I guess it's just 49 seconds left.
Yeah, but, like we were talking about for that second point stretch, wanting to hold that for as long as possible, University of Tennessee, with the odds stacked against them, were able to drag out the time bank of St. John's to under a minute. When you mentioned earlier, user, that University of Tennessee is still looking good to win this map and bring us to a map 5 where St. John's might suffer because of the deathmatchier style of control point compared to the team play-oriented strengths of these maps, I think that this is still viable. A win for University of Tennessee. They just got to play it clean. They got to play to their strengths. And from it's tough. I've seen so many looks from both of these teams that I struggle to know for sure, especially not knowing any of these players. This being my debut, it's hard to know what the strengths of University of Tennessee are. But what I do know is that the hubs is a win condition. Paravir brings it on the Zen. Noodles can sustain the team by themselves, and Lucky Dog can find value on this D.Va. This might be the comp for them to move the cart all the way to the end without stopping.
Honestly, I think it's a lot more riskier than we're kind of more being able to kind of see, especially when St. John's, they're very clutch and they're very passive. Yeah. They're willing to give up as much time as possible if they win that fight. While Tennessee sometimes get a little bit ahead of themselves or not head enough, we're going to see, especially on this Wrecking Ball comp, it's a meta that we've seen in Tier 2, so we have to see, is it run properly?
Oh, that's a great shot. There's your win condition. That's eliminated from University of Tennessee. They're going to have to play a little bit slower here. Look at this rotation. Basher and Lucky Dog looking to position themselves to do everything that both of those tank heroes are able to do. Nice kinetic grasp shields from Lucky Dog there. It's going to help buy them some space against this double shield comp.
You know, I'm more interested to see what does Zenyatta on Tennessee's side. His main goal is, because, you know, you have so many options, and I guess just helping to finish off the hubs is kind of one of them. You just need to set up, help those damage orbs, and I guess that's just what you're looking out. The rest of St. John's kind of caught a little bit off guard now. Very split off, looking to finish off this Wrecking Ball, but it finishes out on the Tracer, and honestly, I do need a little bit of insight. What is his Zen's job? Just in a very uncomfortable spot. They may get headshot at any moment.
Yeah, it's this is it actually. You saw Paraveer going hyper aggressive there against Mr. Koalaman, almost securing that elimination. That's essentially what Zen is looking to do. It's carrying the Brig whenever Noodles wants to go aggressive, but then it's also being that third DPS. It's like we're playing Overwatch back before Roll Queue, and we're watching, you know, San Francisco Shock or Shanghai Dragons play that triple DPS aggro style composition there, with Basher just creating as much space as possible on the Wrecking Ball. Ultimately, Paraveer has to keep the aggression in check against DPS players like Rich, and if you stay. But if you can get the damage out, build Transcendence like crazy, and you can use that to mitigate anything in this next fight.
I do still like how spacious both of these teams are. They're not really fully committing into each other. Rather, there is a dirty mid zone that they have to break through. Tennessee, they finally managed to force that rotation. They go for the back. That pulse bomb may miss only slightly. Look at this, how much room they're being able to factor in. Senate is going to be falling down, yet Rich gets traded in. Building up to that bomb is not going to be possible now, especially when the Grid Flux slams through. Immortality gets broken, keeping up the bat. The Sigma for a little bit longer. If you stay, is the biggest person on this point with that visor, especially with the Transcendence being used. You can't melt through it now, but I mean, you have a second later on, but it's unfortunate that you walk into the mine.
No place to run.
It is not looking good. Tennessee bringing it back last second, especially with Zenith. That is going to be the first point capture, and a very funny one at that.
I mean, the Discord orbs thrown out, the minefield generated, the dragons built, the over has been watched here by University of Tennessee, accomplishing their win condition, which is just let's capture first point and then go from there. St. John's University playing to an advantage, a serious advantage in this next fight. What I anticipate is Mr. Koalaman committing the Flux, drawing out the rally from Noodles, and then from there we'll see the DPS ults find commitment, longer to build it all back up. Picking Basher before the fight's even begun, though, means that you might not even need to use ults to win this first fight.
I feel so bad for Basher just dying very early in these fights, and I mean, there's nothing you can do against it. You're just Wrecking Ball. I do like how they don't notice that Zenith is positioned so nicely. Like, look at them. They're all going on top of the high ground.
Three's a party.
Yeah, they dive in, throw the dragon at a beautiful Karq angle, might I say. Though the Immortality not able to truly help too much out. They get the res, and that's all that matters. Because the hub falls down, so the favor now falls back, and the bomb is being thrown solely to contest this. I am more curious about the Gravitic Flux. I mean, it's understandable, but it already won the fight, and that payload is not moving any further. Besides from the fact that Zenith likes to move around.
You know, you do look at that Flux and you're like, okay, in retrospect, you definitely didn't need it. It's St. John University's commitment to their strategies, to their ultimate cycles, you know, saying, you know, it's fine that we use that there. We'll be able to generate another one for, you know, the fight after next. So it makes perfect sense to me to see it deployed. Just a little sad that, you know, Mr. Koalaman won't be able to pad their stats there with that Flux. Noodles is still sitting on this rally. That's the one that concerns me just a little bit. It's used to help buy some space on this high ground. Some minefields finding commitment as well.
We see the visor being used, stopping anybody from being able to commit, though. You're kind of going to want to wish you had the window with it. It's just not going to be able to do that much damage, and the Transcendence is allowing them to move forward. You have to touch that point, but at what point? At what second? The Orisa gets hit with the Pulse Bomb the moment that they try. Oh, it seems that St. John's are going to be benefiting, especially with Rich throwing out the bomb. I mean, as much as I love them throwing out these ultimates because they build it back up really quickly, it almost just feels like an insult.
Yeah, you can look at it like that. Ultimately, the commitment is pretty steep on both sides, though. You're working with only, the Valk into this next fight for St. John's, and really for University of Tennessee, this is going to have to be kind of an early, dry fight here, playing for the Dragons in the mid fight. For the Hubs, there's so much riding on them in particular because they need to secure these eliminations, especially if Seneth gets picked on this off angle.
Look at this, already trying to pump in that damage. Poor Seneth. That's a 2v1. You get clipped no matter what you want it to do, and that's in an unresable position. University of Tennessee are just trying to get set up so Basher can look for the dive, but without the full 6, without Seneth looking to kind of clean up on that damage, it's not really going to be working too well. You also boop the Wrecking Ball. At least the Soldier is being dived on a little bit, so that was a big threat. It's 30 seconds on the clock.
Here's the problem, though, is that, that elimination onto Seneth, it wouldn't be so impactful if University of Tennessee had ultimates to compensate for that man disadvantage, but they don't, and Basher is going in, finding opportunities to aggro, but it's not being emulated by Lucky Dog as well.
Now look at this, we see it, we go out, Basher is going to fall, they have to touch that point if they want it to stop, and it seems University of Tennessee, they don't have any more energy inside them with the Bongo committed. That basically confirms that nobody is going to outlive the damage. Overtime committed as we see the support line just trying to bring it back in. The Transcendence up in. The Wrecking Ball is able to come back in on it. However, the visor being put on the high ground with the window. I just feel bad that we have to see it end like this. University of Tennessee definitely giving it all that they had and more. But unfortunately, they were not able to bring it back or to end it off because St. John's showing that they are ready for anything. Finish the series 3-1.
And in doing so in quite the style as well, showing us so many different looks, and we got to see that from both teams. So ultimately, it ends up working out for St. John's just a little bit better. And let me check my notes here. St. John's University, with this win, they're going to push themselves even higher up that ladder. A win against University of Tennessee is a really meaningful accomplishment for them. So big congratulations.